Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu Maditvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Would you poke the little white box so it goes away for me? So I think, did we finish the 13th chapter last week? Did we have a few more?
Yeah, a few more.
All right, so we're wrapping up field and knower of the field. Discrimination between the self and the not self, the subject and all the objects. To review, what is the kshetra, the field? All of prakriti, nature, all objects, all emotions, all thoughts, your own body, your own mind, your own intellect, even the ego sense, and the darkness of pure ignorance. What is the kshetranya, the knower of the field, the eternal witness, which is without qualities, without a form, without characteristics. The practice that's implied. Going through whatever preparatory practices that we are led to do to bring the mind into a sattvic state, a pure mind. Be shuddha with me. Intellect that's extremely pure. The space between your thoughts. Attentive faculty, introverted, turn back upon the source. Oham, who am I? We don't find an individual, we find Chid Akasha, the space of pure. And that self is the witnessing consciousness and ultimate reality. They are the same thing. All right, will you help us out? What verse are we on, please?
21.
21.
Do
you have enough light?
Yeah. Karya-karana-kartrutve hetu prakriti-ruchyate purusha sukha-dukkhanam bhoktritve hetu-ruchyate. In the production of the effect and the cause, Prakriti is said to be the cause. In the experience of pleasure and pain, Purusha is said to be the cause.
Say again. I got confused.
In the production of the effect and the cause, Prakriti is said to be the cause. In the experience of pleasure and pain, Purusha is said to be the cause.
Okay, so we're dealing with Sankhya philosophy, the language of Sankhya philosophy. Gita is not really a Sankhya text, but it uses the vocabulary. It's very old. I personally date Gita to Bronze Age, somewhere between, say, 1000 BCE and maybe 1500, 1700 BCE. It's pretty old. So what is Sankhya philosophy? Sankhya philosophy says there is a spirit, Purusha, and somehow it's gotten entangled with matter, Prakriti. Got to disentangle. Krishna's going to say, well, actually, what we're calling Prakriti is also Purusha, the spirit. The point of this verse is cause and effect. What is the cause of this world of name and form? It is the stuff of nature, which we call Prakriti. Later we can say that it is the stuff of mind, because what yoga thunders is the world is not created, it's imagined. Let me see if I can give you an example. Close your eyes for a moment and visualize a strawberry. Now open your eyes. So, in that exercise, there was a subject-object relationship. I saw the strawberry in my imagination. Now, if instead I visualize an elephant, or I visualize a mountain, or I visualize my boss, or if I start thinking about that person that was so mean to me, etc., 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 all of those have as their cause the stuff of my mind. The strawberry, the elephant, the mountain, the people I've imagined, they're all made of the same stuff, my imagination. You see that? We would call that, in the language of Gita here, Prakriti. The stuff out of which all of this is made. Mind you, we're not talking about modern physics ideas of atomic theory or subatomic theory or quarks or quiggles or whatever they call them. Help me out here, Jack.
Quarks.
What's the stuff all made of according to physics?
Quarks.
Yeah. So actually we're saying it's all made of mind. It's all made of mind. So here the shloka is saying that just like when we had our imagination, it's all just the stuff of mind appearing as these various forms. Now, what's the difference between when you imagine a strawberry, an elephant, or a mountain, and you dream about a strawberry, an elephant, or a mountain? There's a great similarity and an important difference. The similarity is the strawberry or the mountain or the elephant of my dream are still nothing but imagination. But I have the additional elements of what we call avidya, ignorance, avarana shakti, veiling power, meaning to the dreamer, I do not know that it's imagination. And I take it as real. To the dreamer, the dream world seems as real as this world does to you and me in the waking state. I only determine that it's imagination when I wake up, when I refute it or negate it, we say. Does everybody understand that? what we find in the white heat of meditation when the mind thins, Tamo Manasa, thinness of mind, or the mind ends, Manonasha. It is like waking up from being awake. And we see that all this comes about in the same way. It's not different. Now, here they say, what is the cause of pleasure and pain? Is the Purusha. So we have to understand that in Gita, these terms are not as precise as we will get 1,000 years later, or even 1,500 years later. Couple ways we can interpret this verse. We can interpret it meaning when he says Purusha, he means our sense of individuality, the subtle body. So I feel sorrow, I feel joy, it happens to me, Jim. But there's a deeper way to interpret this. The Kshetranya, the knower, the real Purusha, which is Brahman, is the knower of all the mental phenomena. And I see it wave out of me. When you feel joy, where did it come from? I don't take a spoonful of joy and put it in my ear. I don't take a cup of sorrow and go. It's something that my mind again creates. But I wouldn't get too hung up in the Sankhya philosophy. My suggestion, keep it simple. Self is ever the knower of all phenomena, gross and subtle. Later on, when we get to Shankara, we'll get slightly different wording. He will use words like Nirguna Brahman and Saguna Brahman. Nir or nis means without. Guna, qualities. Brahman, consciousness. Brahman without qualities is the eternal subject which you and I experience as I. Sa guna Brahman. Sa means with. So Brahman with qualities is this phenomenal world. Again, go to our direct experience, back to our friend the strawberry. So when you close your eyes, visualize the strawberry, you have a subject-object relationship. I see the strawberry. But what is the material cause of the strawberry? What did I make it out of? Imagination. What's imagination made out of? Mind. What's mind made out of? I cannot find a second substance. In fact, this is the greatest of all mysteries. How is it that consciousness, which is one without a second, which is sthita, still, always, never moves, achalam, seems to fork into a subject-object relationship. This is the great mystery. We use the word Maya to describe it. My favorite definition of Maya, that's the word we use to describe how the impossible appears to be possible. How is it that consciousness, which is kutusta, still like a mountain, seems to have a world of name and form appear in it? Like, ooh. But that's what's going on. Any thoughts about this?
So Jim, you do talk about this, the strawberry and the elephant, those are obviously imagination, but what about things that are actually real?
Are they? That's what I'm driving at. The difference is who's doing the dreaming, who's doing the imagining. So if you get hit by a bus, Deepa doesn't disappear. You, Divya, are not imagining Deepa. Ishvara is doing the imagining. But it's how the world comes about. So why do we spend all this time examining, is the world created or is it imagined? If it's only the play of consciousness, consciousness never really is touched by it. Just like when you have a nightmare, you wake up in the morning and you go, oh God, thank God that was just a dream. It seems so real. It didn't really happen. So Vedanta thunders. The self in you, which is the self in everyone, is never really touched by any of it. Does that make it a little clearer?
Mhm. I guess like everything else feels like you can experience it, like you can experience yourself as the subject. But I think the idea of like Ishvara imagining the world still feels very theoretical to me.
I get it. I would rather use the word hypothetical.
Okay.
So you're a scientist.
Mhm.
When you go into the laboratory and you're given a hypothesis, what do you do with it?
You test it,
And what's the testing do?
confirms or denies.
Yes. So maybe what Gita's saying is all wrong. Maybe what the Upanishads are saying is all wrong. Maybe Jim here is blowing smoke. Don't believe me. You need to prove or disprove it in the laboratory of your own experience. Now, you have to perform the experiment. So if someone asks you to test this hypothesis, and all you do is read some other scientist's paper on it, you have indirect knowledge. Isn't that right?
Mhm.
You perform the experiment yourself. Aha, now I know. The person who wrote the paper, they were actually wrong. Their data was sloppy. Maybe Krishna's data is sloppy.
That sounds like this experiment needs you to have samadhi, because there's no other way to prove or disprove it.
Well, why don't you start with two simple practices? Keep watching your mind and take on a practice of meditation. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. That's Vedanta practice. You hear the truth from the teacher in the scriptures. Don't believe. They are hypotheses. Then think about it. Then if you think about it, it hopefully will inspire you to perform the experiment, which is abhyasa, vairagya, practice, meditate, let go, and see what happens. Now, again, as a scientist, if there's a particular researcher and they are super smart and super good, and they have written a paper on a very difficult subject, they've done the math. You may not have done the math, but you tend to trust their work. You can maybe believe them. Isn't that the way you do it, you guys, you theoretical physicists? Where's Jack?
Maybe here.
That's here. Name me a physicist you really, really admire.
There's a lot. But yeah, Einstein, Dirac.
Yeah. But if they wrote a paper, and they showed you the math and stuff like that, you could perhaps trust their work, maybe do some work expanding it, based on it, developing it. So that's why we have the Shruti and the Smriti. So you look to people like Ramana Maharshi. He says it's true, it's true. Sargadatta Maharaj. He says it's true, it's true. As Mamaji used to say, it's true, it's true. Jim says, so far, it's true, it's true. But don't believe us. Just be open enough to perform the experiment. Now, just like in the world of physics, this is stuff I read, I get all my science from Nova, which is pretty basic, But if the people out in space are orbiting the Earth and they're going really, really fast, time is different for them than it is for us on the Earth. Did I get that right, Jack?
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time believing that. I mean, time is just time. It goes clunk, 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 clunk. But the scientists say, no, it doesn't. To do the experiment, even though it doesn't appear logical to a dumb like me. So right now, it doesn't seem logical that the phenomenal world is imagined. All the repercussions that come along with that, if it's true. It's pretty smart people who said that that's been their direct experience. Is that helpful?
Yeah, very helpful. Thank you.
A couple of questions
Yes.
related to that, and about consciousness. So you mentioned, Jim, in the past that who am I? I am the witnessing consciousness. So if we are each the witnessing consciousness, then can the consciousness witness itself?
Yes, it does. Not actually as a witness. Let me show you. It's an excellent question, by the way. Did all of you in Zoom land hear the question?
Yes.
Okay. So we know the world through what's called the triple factor. So when I use the pronoun I, you refer to yourself. I, through seeing, know the coffee cup. I, through hearing, know the sound of the traffic. Are you understanding the triple factor? So we can go through the five senses. Knower, knowing, and know. I, through manas, mind, know feelings. I, through buddhi, intellect, means of knowledge, know thought. Are you?
Yes,
Sure?
pretty sure.
How do you know it?
Just the experience.
Do you see, hear, taste, touch, or smell yourself?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
That's your body. Take a deep breath. Don't you know the breath in the body? You are the knower of the body. Sometimes you feel joy, sometimes you feel sorrow. You're the knower of your feelings. How do you know you are you? This experience of I. Okay? Maybe I don't exist. Who knows that thought? I do. So listen very carefully. The self is Swayam Jyoti. Self illuminated, self luminous, self effulgent. I am the knower. What's the means of knowledge? I don't know. Self is its own means of knowledge. What is that which is known? The self is self-evident.
So you mean the self is witnessing the self?
Well, we can't really call it a witness because you don't say, oh, there's the self, I saw it go by. But you do not doubt that you are.
So the self is experiencing the self. Is that
Language fails us, but you get it. The self knows itself. Now listen very carefully. What knowledge is it that is perfect? That is real with the capital R. That is always there. That you never lose, you can't be without. When are you ever not you? Listen very, very carefully. The self is not achieved. It is not attained. It is not something gained. In the subtle intellect, we realize something we've always been. If you gain it, you could lose it. But you will never know yourself as an object. You're not going to be in meditation and go, aha, that's it. what we do is get rid of all the kshetra, the knowable stuff, through withdrawing our attention. So what remains is what's always been there. But because of its profound ordinariness, I miss it. Did you hear what I said? The self is difficult to realize, not because it's far away. It is so here all the time that I miss it. Meaning, when are you ever not you? My doubt is, what is the nature of that? Those are just ideas. It's not the direct experience of it. For a person to say, I do not know the self, is like saying, I do not believe I have eyes. You see everything in the room, but I don't believe I have eyes.
I have a question.
Yes.
This triple factor, is it related to the Trinity in Christianity?
No.
No.
By and large, I would try not to take another religion's iconography and try to shove it into Vedanta. Now, there are mystics within Christianity who are realized souls. And they will use a completely different kind of language, but I don't want to get into that. It would be too difficult to deal with.
But they've reached the same place.
Because everybody's essentially the same. We all have a body. We all have an emotional life. We all have a thought life. We all have an ego sense. And at the core of our being, our very experience of I is just the ground of being, witnessing consciousness. No matter what you call it.
Jim, you said that we are birthless and deathless.
That's right.
But how does that make sense?
Find the beginning of you.
Isn't it at birth that you're
Is it?
born and then you?
Is it?
That is how.
Prove it.
I mean, before I was born, there was no me.
Are you sure? What you're telling me really
Yeah.
is I have no memory.
Yeah.
Okay. What is today, the 6th of March? What were you doing on the 6th of March in 2010?
No idea, but if
Did you cease to exist?
Mm-mm.
Did you begin on the 7th of March because you don't remember the 6th of March?
No. But I guess just to be more concrete, when you say we are birthless and deathless, what is the life before and after? Or so are you saying that we were there, but just not in this body?
Well, let's try to use a little frame
Yeah.
change. Do you incarnate into a dream?
No.
Are you in the dream or is the dream in you? Dreams in me. But in the dream, I have no memory of myself as the waker. To the dreamer, it seems like it's always been this way. I have no memory of the beginning of the dream. All I know is I'm driving on a mountain road. Isn't that your experience?
Yeah, right. You know, like it's just the dream is there, and then
Yeah.
at some point it's
Isn't
not
this
there.
the same?
So I guess what I'm trying to understand is it that the idea of like reincarnation, or is the idea more that there's no individual life, there's collective life?
This is all covered in depth in the second chapter. But yourself does not reincarnate. It's the subtle body that moves from physical body to physical body. So when we studied second chapter, we spent a lot of time on it. But I don't want to go into that too much. But the self is not born. The self does not reincarnate. If you have a dream Monday night and you have a dream Wednesday night, are you trapped in Monday's dream, and when you wake up, you are released? And then you dream Wednesday and you're trapped in Wednesday's dream? No. I am the witness of the dream state. I am the witness of the waking state. If I have too much wine, I am the witness of the tipsy state. If someone slips me a hit of acid, I am the witness of the acid trip. What is the eternal fact?
The consciousness?
Is it? You find out. Keep looking. See if you can make this distinction between anything knowable, if it has a beginning and an end, if it occurs in time and space, if it has qualities or characteristics, if it's confined to a particular period of time, and most importantly, if it's something that is knowable, then it's not me. I'm the one that knows it. Find out what is the nature of the one who's doing all the knowing.
Thank you. That's very
Very good questions. Those are the real questions. Not, do you believe in astrology?
Yeah, that's also.
yeah.
Pardon me?
I said, hey, that's also a good question.
I actually have thought about this whole scientific approach of, and my intellectual brain is constantly asking. So I'm fully bought in to the idea that everything is unreal because it's an experience, and every experience is really an impression of your money. So it's not the direct experience, but your own conjuring of what happened to you. And it dissolves and ends, and every experience you ever had ends. But then I cannot reconcile an event like if someone comes and stabs me and ends my life, or the body's life. That is an altering event, which
There
cuts
are
through.
people, one, who remember prior lives. Most of us do not, because dying is traumatic. Trauma tends to block our memory. First, there are people who have what we call out of the body experiences. They have near-death experiences. They're drowning, and the next thing they know, they're up high up in the sky, looking down at the body being pulled out of the water, and they're putting the paddles on and all that kind of business. If you're way up looking down at the body, you can't be that body. They're actually the subtle body watching that. But what other people have experienced, that's only hearsay. What you need to do is see whether or not you're the body. And the only thing you can prove absolutely is you have no memory of you beginning. So this idea that consciousness begins with the birth, that's not verifiable. That's an assumption. You see what I mean?
Yeah, and actually, even in the first few years of birth, I mean, I have no memories until I was whatever age. I see what you mean.
So this assumption that I come into existence when the body does, and I cease to exist when I die. Just because of a lot of people believe it doesn't make it true. For hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, everybody thought that if you climb up to the Tower of Pisa, you drop a bowling ball and you drop a marble, they fall at 32 feet per second. The rate of falling is a constant. Is that true, Jack?
Approximately true near the surface of the Earth.
Say again?
It's true near the surface of the Earth, approximately, but
It's approximately true.
Yeah.
So in outer space, is it true with large masses?
No.
Oh. But a lot of people believed it was true for a long time. Before Columbus, most Europeans thought the world was flat. But if you went out on a ship, you'd see it fall off the edge of the earth. Did that make it true? So agreement is not a valid test for truth, for reality. Now, there's a wonderful corollary to that. Most of us, if we are convinced my boss is an absolute jerk, what do? Try to get as many of our friends as we can to agree with us. Get them on the phone. Yeah, it's the truth because she said it and he said it and they said it. Isn't that what we do? If I get 10 people who agree with me, it must be true. But no, agreement is not a test of truth. But it's okay to be with what you absolutely know for sure, which is I have no idea when consciousness began. Isn't that your real direct experience? Isn't it?
Yeah.
I have no idea what happens to consciousness when I die. That is true, your direct experience without superstition, and certainly without this presupposition that body awareness is consciousness. Now, what the scriptures say, self is ajati, unborn, amritam, beyond death. I'm not saying believe it. I'm just saying take it as a hypothesis. Abhyasa, vairagya. See what you find out. yoga is not figure-outable if you do not practice, if you do not engage in vairagya. Your knowledge will be theoretical. We call it paroksha jnana, indirect knowledge. It's helpful. But you need aparoksha jnana, direct experience. Will we ever finish this chapter? But these are good questions. There's been more questions and discussions in this chapter than anyone we've had so far. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Okay, any other things on this? Feel the knower of the field. Next verse. Go ahead.
Well,
Is that
I just-
Shweta?
Yes, Hari Om, Jim.
Hari Om, Shweta.
I just had a small comment to add to the discussion, which
Please.
is helpful to me at least. It's that I find it's useful for me to think of truths as having being at different layers of abstraction. So for instance, when Deepa, I think it was Deepa, was saying that an experience, we can see that it's made by our mind, but if someone comes and stabs us, then isn't that doesn't that alter something? So I feel that looking at that from a higher level of abstraction, that within Ishwara's dream, if somebody is coming and stabbing me, for instance, then does it alter Ishwara?
Everything is Ishwara in the end.
Sorry, say that again.
Everything is Ishwara in the end.
Exactly. So by just like in science, for instance, right, that sort of as you zoom out more and more and look at things from higher and higher levels of abstraction, the truths they don't contradict, but the picture changes. Like you were giving this example.
Yes.
If I go out of the earth, then I can see the earth as a sphere. So similarly, if I'm able to disidentify with this particular body-mind complex, then I may be able to see that the stabbing does not actually alter me.
Well, what the stabbing certainly alters the body. I've
Yes,
stabbed
yes.
myself in the kitchen. It hurts.
Right.
That's a very real experience of my body and my mind.
Yeah, but people, I mean, there are examples of people, who are able to even not experience physical pain in the same way that I experience it.
I agree, but we're not talking about that. What we're talking about here is if I stab myself with a kitchen knife, it hurts. I tell you, if a mugger comes and stabs you and kills you, it will probably hurt in the beginning. But will you cease to exist is the real question.
Right. Yeah, Jim, I get it. I mean, I was sharing a way of looking at it that's helpful to me.
I agree. Let's move on. All right. How many? We should have what? 3 more verses?
I think we have total of 28. We have 22.
Okay. Next one.
Purusha prakritistasto hi bhunte prakriti jan gunan karanam guna samgosya sadasadyo nijanmasu. The Purusha seated in Prakriti experiences the qualities born of Prakriti. Attachment to the qualities is the cause of his birth in good and evil wombs.
So what we're doing here is getting a setup for the next chapter. The next chapter is the yoga of the 3 gunas. So qualities is what we have here, the word in Sanskrit is guna. So in Sankhya philosophy, the three gunas make up Prakriti, nature. And when they're in perfect balance, nothing happens. Without a balance, manifestation happens. And it's witnessed by Purusha. They never talk about what causes them to get out of balance, which has always puzzled me. That's kind of like saying, why did the Big Bang bang? Did some black hole someplace get too full? And it burped? Who knows? Can you answer that question, Jack?
It's a very complicated question. We have to save that for another time, I think.
Anyway, so we also talk about the gunas microcosmically as the qualities of mind of us human beings. And there are three: tamas, rajas, and sattva. Tamas is the principle of dullness, darkness, illusion, delusion, inactivity. The depressed mind. Oh, I'm just going to pull the covers over my head. I don't want to do anything. Or I'm going to spend the whole day watching Netflix. Tamas. Rajas is the principle of activity. This is where ambition, desire, action takes place. Now, all the concomitant problems of that, like jealousy, competition, anger, fear, all of our suffering is in the rajasic mind state. Sattva is the principle of clarity, calmness, non-activity. In the sattvic mind, my real nature is evident. The real nature of the world is evident. Now, listen carefully. I talked about all our suffering is in the rajasic mind state. What most of us do when the mind is rajasic, when I hurt, when I'm restless, when I'm discontent, when I'm unhappy, when I'm irritable, I want to fix that feeling. I want to eat at it. I want to drink at it. I want to smoke a joint at it. I want to zombie out on the television or video games at it. I want to go to bed. What am I doing? I'm moving the mind from rajas down to tamas. This is not a moral issue. The problem is, it's always temporary. And eventually the mind emerges from tamas back into rajas, and all the problems are still there. So fixing the mind by going unconscious. I love the term some of the psychologists use, self-soothing. No blame. It's not a moral problem. It just doesn't work. It's incredibly temporary. So moving the mind from rajas to sattva, we end those issues so they don't afflict us. This is the logic behind yoga. Two kinds of people in the world, bhogis and yogis. A bhogi, B-H-O-G-A, is someone who practices bhoga. Both bhogis and yogis want happiness. A bhogi tries to get happy by satisfying all of their desires, by fixing all of that discontent. Give me this, give me that, more. You know the drug morphine? We are morphines. Give me more, give me more. The problem with being a bhogi is we increase the intensity of our longing. We maximize, we increase the suffering. The yogi also wants happiness, but the yogi engages in a way of life that reduces the number of desires entertained, releases, lets go of the cause of the agitation. Okay, so with this basic framework about the gunas, read the English one more time, please.
The Purusha, seated in Prakriti, experiences the qualities born of Prakriti. Attachment to the qualities is the cause of his birth in good and evil wombs.
So, in actuality, consciousness is never really attached. It's the mind that gets attached. But what happens is we develop an attachment to a particular guna. And that's the cause of my problems. So the antidote, Swamiji used to say, shut up and get out. Quiet in your mind. Get out of the mind. Ever be the witness of the play of the gunas. Now, how the gunas play, the easiest way for me to describe this is with pizza. Hanging out. All of a sudden, I really want some pizza. Get out my phone. Order some pizza. 45 minutes to delivery. You wait. I want pizza. That's called rajas. Finally. Come on up, come on. I get the pizza. Oh, shoot, it's too hot. Rajas. finally I get the pizza. You never cut the pizza with a knife and a fork. You always fold the pizza in. Oh, yeah. Zachary's pizza. Sattva. The long is gone. Have another piece and another piece. Then what happens? I wake up from my stupor. Ice cream now. And it starts all over again. Rajas, Sattva, Tamas. Rajas, Sattva, Tamas. That's the play in the mind. Now, listen carefully. It's not really just a circle. For unconscious people, it's basically just a circle. But for us yogis who are doing practice, it's actually a spiral. As the mind overall gets more sattvic because of our practice, we find that our desires are subtler. We have less attachment, less tamas, less rajas. But the way to deal with this is to always be the witness of the play of the mind. Just don't do something. Sit there. Now, listen very carefully. An impulse is temporary. The vast majority of our impulses cannot last more than about 20 minutes. I want to have sex. I want to drink. I want to scream at someone. I want to, whatever impulse I have. Now, few of us know this. If I have an impulse, I have to act on it. If I'm angry, I have to hit someone. If I'm fearful, I have to run. We don't realize that the mind state will pass. So a yogi learns to be present to her mind as it moves through the gunas. And she sees there's no need to have to act. Ever be the witness of the play. All right, next verse. Do one more and then we'll quit.
Verse 23.
Sure.
उपद्रष्टानुमन्ता च भर्ता भोक्ता महेश्वरः परमात्मोति चाप्युक्तो देहेऽस्मिन् पुरुषः परः. The Supreme Purusha in this body is also called the spectator, the permitter, the supporter, the enjoyer, and the great Lord and the Supreme Self.
So this consciousness has the potentiality for all manifestation to happen. So it is the witness, the spectator, never touched, but out of it comes my life. And it never actually touches me. Don't believe me. Watch. Keep checking out yourself through the day. Stop. Introvert your attention. Notice I. See if you're not that space of pure awareness. Maybe on Tuesdays you're a little gray ball with wings. And not though. Watch the play of the groups. Watch the play of the mind. Ultimately, when we say bhokta, enjoyer, we mean the experiencer. All of this phenomena is illumined by me. Uninvolved, unattached witness of it. All right, we'll quit here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you all.